Travis, and Wendy.
Yes. Present.
Do we have anybody on the phone?
Scott Nielsen, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And Scott Creasy is on his way from Ephesus.
We have 4 board members participating and 1 on his way. I'm not sure how you want to proceed. We have an agenda as well for our meeting. Kind of a joint meeting.
This is Todd Starr. I don't know if Rangeley has already called their meeting to order. Maybe they should call their meeting to order. And then I think it would be appropriate for me to kind of state what the lay of the land is as of 7 o'clock tonight.
Sounds good. Rangeley, are you on the phone?
Yes, sir, I am. This is Andy, and we've already had our meeting. Our meeting was scheduled for 6 o'clock.
Okay. Well, this is Todd Starr then. My honor to serve as the Rio Blanco County Attorney. And we being the county and county staff, prepared a ballot, a resolution to put a sales tax on the ballot, which resolution by statute would have to be passed before 5 o'clock tomorrow. And we also prepared a draft intergovernmental agreement to be executed between the county and both the towns of Rangeley and Meeker. Unfortunately, the 2 towns are at absolute opposite ends of the spectrum. I received a message from the mayor of Meeker, who, to summarize, basically indicates that an idea of a percentage split of the tax is not acceptable to Meeker, and conversely, I received a message from the town of Rangeley that says it will not sign an intergovernmental agreement that does not clearly define the percent of transfer. So unless either the town of Meeker or the town of Rangeley is willing to come off their position, then it appears that there will be no need for the Board of County Commissioners to do an intergovernmental agreement. I doubt that the board will have time or be willing to do a sales tax just on its own. And that means that the board will enter into the 2021 budget process with everything on the table. So hopefully,
Hey, Todd,
if this meeting is successful, hopefully the town of Meeker and the town of Rangeley can take the lead, and that one of them can come off their position, quite frankly.
Todd, this is Andy. We had our meeting at 6 o'clock. That's when it was scheduled, and the town council here voted unanimously to not have the sales tax increase.
Well, then there's very little need for this meeting to continue, unless the Board of County Commissioners were inclined to do a sales tax without the town's consent or participation, but I doubt they are willing to do that based on my conversations with them, which means that the county will have to go forward. I mean, the bottom line is we need to cut about $2 million out of our budget, and if dispatch is an area, communications was an area where we identified close to 400,000, and although we had not made a decision to do that, as all of you know, because all of you are familiar with the statutory process and know that it doesn't even begin until October 15th, but the commissioners were directing staff to look at unturn every rock and stone possible, and I guess that staff will go back to the drawing board and keep unturning those rocks, and everything is open for discussion.
Andy, this is Kent Borchard. Can you tell us what the basis for your board is deciding not to do a sales tax increase at all?
The town council felt like the commissioners need to have a direction on where they're going to start off with and make cuts just like all of us would do in our personal life before asking the taxpayers to pay for an increase.
And that's regardless of whether we go with the 70-30 split.
We didn't talk about the split a lot, but the way it all came back is that, all of this happened way too quick. We don't have time to talk to our constituents about this, and everything happened too quick, and we don't feel like until, if times are bad and the county's cut and we've cut, and we just can't make it, then that's when we go ask for it. We understand the big picture. Everybody here understands it. But there's no definition right now on how any of the cutbacks are gonna be made. This has all happened in 3 days.
This is Gary Moyer, and I would just like to be clear that we as commissioners were not asking the voters to approve a 1% sales tax. We were asking them whether or not they wanted to pay a 1% sales tax. And that's quite a difference. We very much would like to have the opportunity to ask the voters of Rio Blanco County whether they are willing to fund keeping a dispatch center here. We'd love that. That was our goal. It wasn't because we were advocating for a sales tax or not advocating for a sales tax. It was about wanting the voters to have a chance to vote. Just wanted to be clear.
Andy, do you think your board understands that all we're talking about is getting it to a vote of the people?
We very well understand that, and we understand that the percentage of voters in Meeker is greater than the percentage of voters in Rangeley, and that was taken into consideration also, because we could, if the vote.
Show you.
Go ahead. Andy? Did we lose you, Andy?
Is the town really there?
Well, it appears that we've lost Andy. Todd, what is your position regarding going forward with putting a sales tax on the ballot without support for Rangeley, from Rangeley? Did we lose the county too? Do we have anybody on the phone?
This is Melody. I'm on the phone.
This is Ellen Reichert. I'm on the phone.
Scott Nielsen, I can hear you loud and clear.
This is Jeremiah.
Hey, I can hear you. Okay, this is the county, so hopefully everybody can hear us and we can hear you.
All right, thank you, Vicki.
Okay, I'm going to turn down our volume just a little bit, so that may have what caused the problem.
Okay. My question was directed to Todd. Can we go forward with putting it on the ballot without Rangeley's support? Can we do it just with the county and Meeker?
I think we addressed that, Kent, that we don't want to do it as a county-only tax without having both of the the incorporateds on board with us.
Is there a legal reason why you can't go forward?
Todd, are you on board there? Todd Starr?
We lose, I bet he's got to call back in too.
Kent, maybe we lost him. Hold on just a minute.
All right,
I'm gonna let him answer that.
You'd have to set up a special district to exclude Rangeley. Because if we did that, then they'd have to pay the tax, right? Against their will. That's the problem.
Jeff?
Yep, we're trying to get him on the line.
Okay,
Vic, is Todd there?
Todd is there, did you not hear him talking just a
No.
second ago?
No, we can't.
No.
Debbie might be able to answer your question.
Kent, you can hear me, right?
yes.
Okay. Hang on one second.
Todd?
That was Kent.
No, that other little.
Try this.
While we're waiting for Todd, let me say the other thing that I wanted to say. This sales tax increase was suggested at that recent meeting and is primarily motivated by wanting to ensure that the Rio Blanco County Communications Center remains in Meeker and continues to provide services to the Rio Blanco County Sheriff's Office, Meeker Police Department, EMS, and Fire District. We brought Rangeley along thinking that they would certainly be interested in receiving between $178,000 and $340,000 for their center, even though we hadn't heard from them that they really needed anything. My feeling is that if legally we can go forward with the county and Meeker sales tax increase, we should do it because it benefits both the county and Meeker, and there's no reason not to go forward with it.
Before you do that, though.
Back up. You guys need any help?
Okay, so who do I have on the phone right now?
Todd?
Anthony,
Cody
Rangeley Town Council.
Hey, guys, have we got Todd on there? Todd, did you hear what Kent just talked about? Can you give us a legal opinion on that?
I did not hear Kent.
Kent, would you readdress your question back, please?
Sure. Todd, motivation for the sales tax increase came as a result of the recent meeting we had here in Meeker. And the intent was primarily to provide funding for the Rio Blanco County Communications Center, which benefits the Sheriff's Office, Meeker PD, the Fire District, and EMS. Rangeley came along, even though we didn't hear from them that they needed or wanted it. So my question is, can we legally go forward and potentially put this on the ballot for a sales tax increase in Meeker and in the county, and not in Rangeley?
Move to exclude Rangeley out of it.
Debbie's shaking her head no.
I believe that Debbie is wrong, and that yes, we can, the county can do a sales tax. That's what I referenced in my opening remarks, that the county could just do a sales tax without the community's consent. I believe we have plenty of room under the cap. I'm not aware of any agreements that have previously been executed that prohibit that amongst the parties. And so yeah, the answer is I think we could. I think that's an option.
I wasn't addressing the consent issue. It sounded like, we wanted to include Rio Blanco County and the Town of Meeker, not Rangeley, in the sales tax.
Yes, ma'am.
We are one taxing jurisdiction with 3 separate. So everybody's got to be involved in collection of the tax. No one left out countywide.
Hey, guys,
I couldn't hear her.
The bottom line is what she said is we've all got to play in the sandbox together. We can't separate Meeker and the county.
I don't think that's accurate. What's her authority for that?
I was just addressing the actual sales tax issue of being one sales tax jurisdiction with 3 separate distributions. It's all county tax.
You've got to get closer to the microphone.
she's right on it, Todd.
Yeah, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. I said I wasn't addressing the consent issue. I was just addressing the actual sales tax issue in saying that we have one taxing jurisdiction with 3 separate distributions. And so if the county passes a sales tax resolution countywide, regardless of which distribution point you're in. And yeah, that's it.
I'm still not sure I'm understanding, Devin. I'm sorry to be difficult, but what I think you're telling me is that you believe that because there are 3 distribution points within the county, even if we pass a sales tax just by the county, it's your belief that it has to be shared with all of the distribution points.
No.
I'd like to know.
Everybody would be contributing to this. In other words, the stores in Rangeley would be collecting the additional tax also, which means that they would also benefit from it, whatever you want to say. It can't be, it's not like a Rangeley city tax or an individual tax.
What makes you believe that the county cannot do a tax and effectively collect from Giovanni's down there? They have to add an extra penny.
And I'm not saying that, Todd. I don't know that part. I don't know that part. I think we're talking about 2 different things.
So what is it you're trying to say? Help me understand.
You said we can't pass a tax and exclude Rangeley.
We cannot pass a county sales tax increase and exclude the town of Rangeley. I didn't say anything about them agreeing or disagreeing with it.
Okay, so let's stop right there. What you're telling us is you believe that we cannot exclude a town, and I'd like to know why, because I believe we can.
I don't know about excluding someone in the decision making. I'm not even talking about that part.
I'm not talking about the decision. I'm not talking about the decision making. I think there is authority for the county to impose a countywide sales tax and collect 100% of what is collected as part of that tax.
That may be true. I'm just telling you how it's set up right at this point, just to make it clear. And I'll just let you continue with what you're talking about.
And Todd, can I intervene there a little bit? I've got to say, if the town of Rangeley does not want to participate in this, I have a hard time in my own thought process, so we're gonna impose a countywide sales tax, so we're gonna collect 1% down there, and it's gonna come back up to Meeker. Am I hearing that correctly? So,
yes, you are hearing that correctly, and I will tell you, Commissioner Rector, that we have talked sometimes in private, me and the commissioners, about the legal advice and the practical advice and the political advice. And although it may be legally something that the board could do without the town of Rangeley's consent or participation or sharing in that tax, it is probably not politically a very sound thing to do because it will cause difficulties in the relationship for years.
They may be able to opt out.
And that's where I'm at with this, is I think we need to get everybody to make sure, and I think that's what we tried to do in this very short period, that we weren't successful in doing, was trying to get the town of Meeker, the town of Rangeley, and the county all on the same page, so that we could come up with a very equitable solution for everybody.
This is Gary.
Hey, this is Andy up here again in Rangeley. Hey, this is Andy up here in Rangeley, and we want you guys to know that we're in 100% support of the Rio Blanco dispatch and Rangeley dispatch. That's not what this decision was made by the council. We are in 100% support of the Rio Blanco dispatch and the Rangeley dispatch.
So Deb,
That's not the
We're
question.
not 100%.
Deb is sitting here telling us that there's a possibility that we could pass the mill levy and the folks that want to could opt out based on whatever criteria.
Sales tax.
No, I'm sorry, sales tax, not on the levy. I know that on things like our rec district, there's under certain conditions, some of the landowners can opt out of paying. Now, I don't know if that fits into this or not regarding sales tax.
Is that Gary talking?
It is, yes.
They can't opt out. If
Okay.
the county were to vote for a sales tax, 1% sales tax, without ever approaching Meeker and Rangeley, a 1 cent sales tax would be collected throughout the county, and it would go only to the county, and nobody could opt out.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Which is essentially what's happening with the Meeker share anyway. It's going to the county. This is Wendy, correct?
Who's?
It's windy, but I can't understand you.
I said, can you hear me now? That the sales tax is going to be generated from the Meeker, from all the sales, county and Meeker, will all be going to the county. So the county still is going to be the recipient of that. The only question is whether or not Rangeley gets a share of the collection.
But,
Well, no, actually, I disagree with that because that is correct. That was the correct statement today, this morning, but with the vote of the Rangeley Town Council, the only question now is, does the county want to move forward with a sales tax of its own? Or does the county want to look at making budget cuts and everything is on the table at that point?
This is Ken. I think that you commissioners, as well as the board here, have always subscribed to the idea that issues like this should be submitted to the vote of the people and let the people decide. I don't think it's right that a board down in Rangeley of 6 people get to decide the fate of communications and dispatch in Rio Blanco County. Let's let the people decide. Put it on the ballot. I think you commissioners should have the courage to do that. And you're not going to offend anybody by submitting it to a vote of the people.
This has taken 3 days to come to where it's at right now. Why is this not something that the county has looked at their budget for first, just as the town and town of Meeker is, before we start going to the public to look for a vote? There's nothing set in stone where anything's been adjusted but yet we're still asking for a vote, sales tax increase? And in 3 days, it doesn't make sense. Why can't we talk to our constituents and let them understand it fully?
Because there's a deadline.
And Andy, can we go back on that?
I get that there's a timeline, but there's also next year.
Let's go back on that.
Hey, this is Anthony, can I say something?
This
is
thing got
Anthony.
blew completely out of the water on Friday. We were having a discussion to decide whether we were gonna get rid of, or we were having a discussion with Colorado Highway Patrol on the budgetary process through dispatch between Rio Blanco County and Colorado Highway Patrol. The thing got blew completely out of the water. I really think what we need to do, and you're exactly right, we haven't even had our prelim budget hearing. That will be on next Tuesday. So that decision was never made. These are solely conversations. My opinion is right now, and we all knew that this was gonna be a huge struggle to try to get this done from Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning to today. I think what we really need to do is we really need to retract this thing. We need to take it to the voters in November of 2021 and let them decide there. Because I think everybody's right. We really need to let the voters decide that. We've just tried to push that envelope. There just wasn't enough time, guys, and I gotta be honest. This staff in this courthouse has worked their tail off trying to make that happen.
Yeah.
And there again, there's just been too much information. There's too many variables to this thing to try to get a really solid decision. So let's just step back a minute. Let's figure out where we move forward for the next year, and let's put it to the vote of the people next year. When we have some time to really make this thing right.
Jeff, this is Anthony. I agree 100% that we need to put the brakes and stop this, because no decision needs to be made right today. It's not gonna hurt to wait at least one more year to make this decision, in that it's not rushed and it's the correct, we present it correctly and let the people vote on it. The whole push on this came is when I was told it was going to be shut down January 21. That's why I pushed it. So hence the rush. But I agree, if we put on the brakes, everybody step back and evaluate, I think we're going to make a much wiser decision for the people.
Jeff?
Anthony, this is Andy again, and we agree with that 100%. The whole council does.
Jeff? This is Kent.
Yeah, go ahead, Kent.
Can I take what you said to mean that you're going to fully fund Rio Blanco County Communication Center for 2021?
No, we're gonna ask for your support in that as well, Kent.
Well, we're perfectly willing to do that, as we always are.
Okay. Yep, everything's on the table, so we're gonna ask for that.
As long as your comment that you're gonna submit it to the voters next year means that you're not gonna close dispatch here, then we're fully supportive also.
Perfect.
And we would love to be involved in the communications and the decision making of it and stuff too, have an input.
Yep. I think this is one of those points that everybody's gonna have to put their money where their mouth's at.
Okay, does anyone have anything further to say tonight? I still want to thank all of your staff. It was a yeoman's effort to put all this together.
Yes, it was.
The ballot, the intergovernmental agreement, the resolution. Vicki and Todd, and whoever else was involved in it, thank you very much. You made it.
Ditto here from Anthony.
Made it a possibility.
Ditto here from Becky.
Yeah, Becky.
Hi, ditto.
Have we got any comments in the audience in the courthouse? Have we got anybody on the phone that would like to make a comment? With that being said, I'm gonna call this meeting adjourned at 7:31. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
You have anything for me? Right.
I hope not.
So,
They might,
You ready for this?
they might be coming to us for 500,000.
Yeah, right.
well, that's the next question, is are we willing to, start talking about what we're willing to contribute to their cause?
Yeah, they've got.
So Colorado State Patrol, they charge based on call volume. So that's a fair way to do it if we have to contribute. I would have to think that the town of Meeker's call volume is considerably county.
They discontinued on me with the city of Meeker.
Do we have anyone on the phone yet?
It's Melody. I'm still on the phone.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Scott's still there.
Okay, good.
Scott, yeah.
My perception is that the town council hasn't come to any decision on this. Is that correct?
They voted no.
Rangeley voted no.
Rangeley voted no.
Meeker Town Board.
We haven't voted at all.
We didn't get to it.
We have to have all parties on board in order for this sales tax to go forward. So it has to be approved by the town of Meeker, the town of Rangeley, and Rio Blanco County in order to go forward.
That's not the way it sounded.
Yeah. No, I know. But the commissioners also said that they would not go forward without Rangeley this year, and then they started talking about how it's a rush job, which we all knew going in.
And it may be possible that Rio Blanco County can go for the sales tax increase. That may be a possibility.
Yeah, but that would be political suicide. They wouldn't want to do that.
Well,
What blows my mind is that Rangeley stood to get, according to my calculation, $340,000 next year.
They're looking at like we,
Yeah, but they stood on principle too.
and they're looking at, okay, if there's other shortfalls, are we gonna have to raise more than just 1% to cover other gaps?
that's kind of our discussion.
The county worked at a deficit last year. They can work at a deficit for one more damn year.
Oh, no, they balanced their budget last year. I asked that question of one of their commissioners.
You need to look at their numbers. You need to see their budget for 2020.
Sounds like the commissioner needs to see their budget for 2020, because he told me clearly that they didn't run in the deficit last year.
I have a copy at my house that I'd be glad to bring you if you'd like to see it.
Well, it sounds like we're going to be up for future negotiation with Rio Blanco County over the dispatch center. So,
Keep your poker hand out.
I think we can play with the big boys. They have, and this needs to be called to their attention frequently, $40 million they're sitting on. The CCITF plus their reserve fund. They have $40 million. They're not desperate. And they've been taking an axe to their staff, which is amazing to me. You talk about snap decisions. They're getting rid of people like Deb Moreland, who generates more revenue for this county than she ever cost this county by the way she handles the use of sales tax. And I know that because I've worked with her for 10 years.
So right now, the CCITF fund, they're using primarily the interest that's earned on that, right?
That's what they
That's
expected.
what they do. That's been the tradition, but there's no absolute requirement that they can pass a resolution spending any of it they want.
and there's no interest anymore. That's the problem.
Yeah, so they just sit on it.
It's a rainy day fund, and I submit that maybe it's raining.
Didn't they use that as part of the broadband backing?
No.
No, we
I heard
used,
this before.
we used the fund that we saved in, after the Chevron case, not Chevron, the Exxon Mobil case. We had collected a lot of taxes, about $10 million worth, county had. And they didn't have to refund any of it, so that was the fund that went to build the Justice Center.
The only thing with CCITF is it has to be used for capital. It can't be used for O&M.
Then they had additional money from grants and taxes
They,
For broadband.
for broadband.
they leveraged that money for DOLA grants and federal grants. Substantial.
Hey, anybody have anything further? I don't think we have anything else on the agenda. We kinda got killed.
So where do we go if they decide in 2 weeks that they're not gonna fund that dispatch center?
They agreed, they'll follow through to negotiate with us before they kill them. We're always gonna work together.
There's a comment about going to the use tax vote next year, to me, and that's why I said what I said, pretty well solidifies the fact that they're not going to send communication center away.
Do you think we can trust them? Do that?
If they don't fund it, I win $5. I made that bet with the mayor, and it's legal to bet in Colorado. I wanna believe him, but we'll see on the 22nd.
Well, if he was willing to do that, then why did he try to move forward with everything on such a down low when they were gonna be discussing it in the first place? It's not like the commissioner board has exhausted all their resources and other places where they can find funding. I thought the original plan was to put the dispatch center under the county commissioners because that opens them to a great deal more funding from the state and the federal, on a state and federal level, which is what the original plan was.
No.
And so now he's just trying to cut it out so he can balance his budget. I got issues with that. Sorry.
I don't know whether it's gonna be state and federal funding.
Yeah, I think this next year is gonna be an
Interesting.
interesting year, because we don't know how much of this is from the COVID related, or actual oil and gas related, or a combination. We're gonna have a year of unknowns until we get back into the steady group again.
I want to see next March's sales tax. People were trapped at home, you couldn't go anywhere. That's why there was such a huge spike, or one reason contributing to a huge spike.
Right.
So now we need to see a year, I mean, I like the fact that we're waiting a year, if they fund it.
And then again, part of the problem is that they've already axed their sales and use tax office, if you will, and, tracking those numbers in a year that we should be able to really put our finger on them is gonna be dicey. Lisa works with Deb Moreland monthly.
So
Yeah, we can track hours.
and we were cutting checks to them because of the way it was getting distributed by the.
Well, that's what I pointed out to the commissioners on Tuesday, was that over the course of the last year, 14 months, the town of Meeker had reimbursed the county by $120,000 of revenue that came to the town that belonged to the county. So that more than pays for
Who determined
Deb's
that?
wages. I'm sorry,
Who determined that?
Deb Moreland.
Yeah.
And
That's what
I
I'm
look
saying.
at it too, and so does Amy. I mean, we review all of it. So Deb and I have been working together for a very long time. We know what belongs here and what doesn't, and when there's a question, now that the internet sales play in, she chases it down.
It's the internet sales, and it's also the point of sale. Because it used to be like if you were in the in Maker, you sold something in the county, Maker still got the sales tax.
Right,
Now, if you sell something in the county gets sales tax.
right,
So that's where a lot of.
yeah. So there's a lot of it.
The major part of that chunk is coming off of Peons Creek on that sales tax. Is that not
For the
correct?
county, it
For the
is.
county, it is.
The other
Not for
part of
us.
the point of sale thing is that energy
Right.
companies were buying materials and things out of the county and bringing them in and not paying sales tax. And now the vendor is required to charge the sales tax and remit it to us.
Mhm.
That's why the number that the county is going to get from 1% is $540,000. I said, Deb, what kind of sales do they have? They don't have any retail sales. And she said, it's because the large companies who bring stuff in have to pay that sales tax now. She talked about natural soda and Desperado Mine.
Enterprise.
Enterprise has laid off 11 people.
We're still buying stuff.
They won't be buying much longer at that rate. That's bad business. Good luck, Tom.
We have $12 million in reserve, right? Is that what I heard?
They've got $17 million in reserve for the general fund, and they've got $24 million in CCITF money.
So if they keep their word, there's no problem keeping this going for a year and then getting everybody's input.
Yeah.
Is there any way to make that
Yeah,
happen? Is there any way to make it, they get that on paper and some signatures if they're gonna do that? I don't know much about politics, so I'm gonna learn.
The worst case scenario was that if they dipped into the reserves and kept operating at the level that they've been operating at, it seemed like a doomsday report the other day, but it was they go into reserves, they would be broke in 3.5 years, I believe is what, their budget director said.
But that's only if they don't correct the problems, right? But if we buy a year to keep the,
And I don't see how that computes.
and we can explore options, we have that time.
Yeah, and
They have a $2 million shortfall, and they got $40 million in the bank.
Right, but they're automatically looking at cutting dispatch.
That means
So
that
that car ran out of gas,
Still
will throw it away.
concerned about our public.
solves the problem.
Because
Even coverage, can't even believe it would be on the table.
Yeah, they were gonna have to have like
CCITF is only for capital improvements.
That can change. They can change that.
Yeah.
And I don't care as long as they don't
Yeah,
screw around with dispatch.
well, the next thing they're screwing around with is, they're already talking about is the jail. So I floated that out when I spoke to him yesterday. I don't know if it's a public meeting, but, the potential of closing the jail, putting our inmates in Craig, and then cutting some staff and shuttling them back and forth, for court dates, or doing Zoom court.
I don't think they have the jurisdiction to do that to the jail. Am I right, Ty?
I believe so. I think it's statutorily required that every county shall have a jail.
Yeah, that was thrown out yesterday when I spoke to him, prior to talking to you.
The commissioners have control over dispatch, and I have no idea why that's true. But Anthony told me the other day that that's the only function of the sheriff's office that they do have control.
Do they control their budget?
Clearly.
Obviously not.
I hope not.
Yeah, they have other ways that they can,
It's unfortunate that two people in the sheriff's office have totally alienated Si.
I guess I might point out that we're completely off our agenda, so.
Point of order.
This is under other business.